Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
I'm not voting.
All opposed?
Wasn't there.
None? Any abstentions?
Yeah, I'm abstaining.
I've got 1, 2, 3, I got 4 ayes, 1 abstention, and alternate did not vote. So
Who was the fourth aye?
I was. Throw up, I mean, Kevin said aye, I said aye, Neil said aye. Did I miss?
I wasn't present, so I.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay.
Well, I did say aye, so.
Okay.
You're correct.
right,
I
so-
wasn't present, so.
So it was a 3 ayes,
technically should've.
2 abstentions, 0 nays. Motion passes. The June 11th, 2024 minutes have passed. With that, that's all we have on the docket, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Meeting adjourned.
First is, of course, the agenda. Em put in a couple of things she wanted to note. I think one, which is it's going to be covered by you, and then the other is simply a suggestion for Friday update blurbs and just a proposal and an overview of a plan so we can vote on that and get that going. We've talked about, wanting to do Friday updates a few times. So that should be relatively straightforward, and we can get to that towards the end, I think. Is there anything else anyone else wants to add to the agenda before we get started?
Hearing none, I'll move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor? Cool. As always, thank you for the minutes, Mike.
Despite being late.
Hey,
That was a long meeting.
it was a big
it
one.
was.
I think you went through like 8 legal pages, so
Well, yeah, and I go back and I watch the video again.
Wow.
To take notes from, so 2.5 hour video.
Yeah,
Stopping
yeah,
to take notes.
yeah. For the committees that have paid note takers, that's more or less what they do.
Yeah.
So do we need to pay them?
I haven't seen the picture.
yeah. I was going to say the free ones I've seen tend to summarize 2-hour meetings in about 50 words. So
You know about the
Much
1.5
appreciated.
playback speed?
No, actually,
Yeah, if you go down to the bottom, you can actually speed
I
it
just
up.
sort of use the scroll button to slide it along sometimes to skip over what it looks
But
like.
you can
Oh, yeah.
go 1.5 times.
he likes the
Yeah.
record scratch sound though.
Okay, I do have one minor change to the minutes, which is
Great.
that Michal Konopko should be listed under other attendees.
Fair enough. Good catch. Thank you.
I just have a technical question about minutes. Do we always have Zoom on, and do we have access to their transcribe feature?
I'm not. I don't know. The wonderful voice in the sky might be available.
Yeah.
We test in a meeting a little while ago. I haven't really been turning it on since, but there's live captioning in something Castus related. I can ask my boss if we can turn it on for this if you guys want.
I will say the tech department for my company looks upon it with skepticism. So
For us, it was worth it, so
Yeah.
it might be worth an experiment.
yeah,
As
that's
a
good idea.
draft, it would basically be a plain English draft with all the freakiness.
AI is going to make the minutes synopsis.
Not minutes.
From this committee's ramblings?
I'm pretty sure Michael do his due diligence no matter what, but I'm certainly willing to like.
It's vulnerable to monogreens and the like.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point. We should probably bring it up with Todd and talk it out. Let's
So
see
no
what's up
action
with it.
item right now. She
I wouldn't
doesn't need
say
to
so,
ask
no.
detail.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right, but,
Yeah, bring Craig into that too.
Yeah, that's smart. Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe discuss it at the council meeting next Monday.
Right. We wouldn't want to do it without everyone else being okay with it, I
Right.
guess. Anywho, that was a remarkably long minutes section. Does anyone else have any other changes to them? No. Just trying to move everything along, everybody.
Okay, yeah, then I'll move that we approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
All in favor? Great. So with that, I think we have these fine people in the audience to tell us about, I believe, housing work plan.
Okay. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sally Tobias, and I am the chair of the Housing Task Force. And I have with me tonight Heather Grant, who is Councilor Grant, and she is also our town council rep on the Housing Task Force and an original member of the Housing Task Force. Just some brief history of the Housing Task Force. When I was on the council and I got on the council in 2016, and I started getting involved in economic development, and with Councilor Howland, we were pretty involved in trying to get out there in other communities and finding out about how they do economic development. And we kind of stumbled across housing, believe it or not, and communities that were really starting to get engaged in housing because they were realizing that there was something missing in their communities and they needed it. And so when the Economic Development Committee was sunsetted, we decided to bring in a housing task force to look at the housing situation in Durham and what our options are. And we all knew, those of us that were out in the community knew there was something missing. And we realized that there was a lot of housing for college students and a lot of housing for older, over 55ers, but they were more like over 65ers. And housing prices were starting to tick up a little bit. And there weren't a lot of new developments. My time on the planning board showed that there were very few developments for housing. I knew that multifamily housing was not allowed at all unless it was student housing only in the downtown area, and there was things going on with that, if you remember, with Mill Plaza. So there was a lot of issues we were looking at. So we formed the housing task force, and under that we received a HOP grant, which is a housing opportunity grant, and we paid for a housing assessment to be done for the town of Durham. This assessment was done by RKG, and some of the information that I have in his reflects that. Why we're here today as part of our outreach to the community, we want to hear what community members are thinking about housing and what type of options we should be focusing on. And we realized that we could have a Saturday afternoon or a Thursday evening session where we invited the community to come, but we knew a lot that we would get the same old people, or we would not get a nice mix of variety of people. And it's hard to give up time on a Saturday afternoon to come here for some lemonade and cookies from Hannaford. I mean, it's really what people want to do. So we thought, well, we have captive audiences when it comes to our boards and committees. They're already here. If we just ask to come to and get on their agendas, we could then show them some basic stuff about the housing situation in Durham, and then ask them, what do you think? And then get a nice wide variety, and we're not asking you to come to an extra meeting. We're just asking you to stay a little longer at a meeting you've already volunteered to do. And most of the people on these boards and committees are really vested in the community, and they have their own, dynamic, their own, interest, and it just brings a nice mix. So you guys are the second one. We've done the HDC, and Councilor, hello.
You're sworn in,
Oh.
right?
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah, take a seat
Have
at
a
the table.
seat. Did you come here to get sworn in?
I don't believe so. I just got.
Okay, well then I think you do have to sit there today. I'm sorry.
That's right.
It's our newest member.
Oh, hello. Anyways, Councilor Lund was at the HDC last week, so he's getting a second view on this, which is great. And we also have Michael Barrett here. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm going to go through the slides fairly quickly, but I will stop if you have any questions. And at the end, it's going to be about your thoughts. Okay, so first of all, what is workforce housing? For those of you that may not have realized it or ever thought about it, workforce housing is housing which is designed to provide a broad range of living options that meet and individuals that represent the majority of New Hampshire's diverse workforce. And workforce housing projects often include a variety of dwelling types for households with different needs and income levels. Now, the state of New Hampshire, many of you heard about their fair share model. And what the state of New Hampshire did is it looked at looking forward, it did a 2020 to 2030 and a 2020 to 2040. We focused on the 2040 number since we're almost to 2030. Looking at that, with the normal growth in New Hampshire, the total number of households that will be added to the state of New Hampshire, and the total units needed to house those people, those individuals. The state wanted to address the future housing needs, and they created this fair share model that would be provided to municipalities and planning commissions in making their future decisions as to housing. And the RKG report did use this data, looked at it, and as you can see, total in the state, 88,395 of housing units that we're short, that we need. Not that they are there already. We are short that in the state. Now, RKG took a look at that, and because Durham is an unusual community when it comes to having a lot of college students here, we projected our numbers down to 455 units of that fair share, which is a small amount, but we are a small community. And those units that we should provide could be a mix of rentals or to purchase. They definitely need to be non-student focused. So we don't want to encourage any more student rental, student units to be built. And we can decide on whether they want to be to purchase or for rental or a mix of those types. Now, we've heard a lot of this actually. This is one thing that I've heard a lot is why? Why is Durham doing this? Shouldn't other people be doing it? And well, Durham is a part of a larger community. We're not an island with a bubble over it. We live in the seacoast area, and Durham residents rely on workers who live in geographical area around us and often have long commutes. And we are serviced by people that work there. They live all over. They don't just live in Durham. They may live in Dover. They may live in Milton. They may live in Brentwood. They may live in Epping. We're serviced by people that live all over, and we rely on those services here in Durham to live our lives. Durham is not affordable to many, and it offers few housing opportunities for those who want to live here. We know we don't have a lot of apartments. It's hard to find an apartment unless you are a college student. Even graduate students are very challenged in finding housing that they can afford, housing in general. And Durham suffers from a lack of growth and a lack of diversity. And many residents feel Durham has a moral responsibility to do something about the housing crisis. And many of us do call it a crisis because in reality it is. Whether you agree with that or not. Durham's master plan creates or supports the creation of affordable housing. From the 2015 master plan, our vision for 2025 is Durham provides affordable housing opportunities in safe, healthy, dynamic neighborhoods for working families and elders of all ages, retirees and students. Well, we've done a pretty good job on the students. We've done a fair job on retirees. We do have a lot of over, but I would argue that many of those over 55, not all, but many, especially the newest ones, are financially out of the grasp for many, and many of them are for purchase rather than just renting. So we've got a long way to go. Now this is a number, these are the demographic trends in Durham since 2011 and 2021. And these are, of course, are taken from the census, which RKG used the census to hone in on all of this. It shows, which many of you probably are not surprised at, but between 2011 and 21, 18 to 24-year-olds increased by 1,671 individuals, or 19.7%. In that same period, 25 to 34-year-olds increased by 9.4%, which is probably more of your graduate students or your postdocs. we all, how many new students moved into Durham when the new housing facilities came online, so that number shouldn't surprise anybody. But what many did find surprising, and I actually found surprising, was the ages between 35 and 44 actually decreased, and the ages 45 to 54 decreased by 47%, which is a dramatic decrease. And you could surmise that the 45 to 54-year-olds were, perhaps empty nesters. Their kids are graduating from high school, and they're leaving the area. And then the 55 to 64 also decreased. The 35 to 44-year-olds, and those are your childbearing ages. That's where people are moving in, settling down, buying homes or renting apartments, and looking at raising children. And those numbers are in the decline. Our 65 and up raised by 31.7% during that time. And interestingly enough, I think, when did Riverwoods come online? It was, there's
4 or 5 years ago.
yeah, it was during,
Yeah, just before the start of the pandemic, so 2019-ish.
yeah. So some of those numbers may not even be, some of the Riverwoods numbers may not even be reflected in this. But I think we all knew that there was a lot of apartments for young kids and a lot of apartments for older people. But we know if you're just moving in and you want to live in Durham for a year before you buy a house, you aren't going to be renting unless you already know somebody with an apartment. It's hard to find a place to rent. We don't have facilities for people to rent. Here's a map of our zoning. You guys are probably pretty aware of all of our different zones, and all of those have different rules that allow or do not allow certain types of housing. So here are some possibilities. In Durham right now, attached accessory dwelling units are allowed by right in all zones, and this is because by the state of New Hampshire, everyone has a by right for a attached accessory dwelling unit. It does require a door that can or cannot be locked. They don't require it to be locked or unlocked, but there has to be a door, which some people wonder why, but that is a requirement. Detached accessory dwelling units, which are currently only allowed in R and RC. They are not allowed at all in RA or RB districts. So if you have a garage and it's been there and you want to convert it to an ADU, and you live in RA or RB, that's not going to happen. You're not allowed. But in R or RC, they are allowed. One of the questions we're asking is, should they be allowed? Should we allow them in RA or RB? Would they work in both? Would they work in one or not the other? What are the conditions? In rural and residential coastal, should we allow two? Maybe one attached, maybe one detached. I don't know. What would be the conditions that we would require these? Duplexes. This is a bone of contention for many people in town. Duplexes can bring up some very emotional responses. People don't want duplexes. And presently, duplexes are not allowed anywhere except in senior developments. We have duplexes, and unfortunately, that's why the history of duplexes has not gone well. People go back to Code Drive and they say, oh, well, they were built in the 90s and they all turned into student housing. Well, there's a lot of different conditions now than there were then, but should we look at that? Duplexes can be built more cost-effective than a single family, and can be built. You get two living units on one piece of land. Should we look at that? And we have some other pictures of duplexes. These are older pictures, but it shows that duplexes were pretty much common in this area. I think we've all seen them. We've gone to Manchester. You even see the triplexes and the fourplexes. Dover's full of duplexes. It was common to build back in the day. 100 years ago, we would build what we wanted, what we needed, where we needed it. And with zoning really taking effect, those changes were, those choices were eliminated. Many people now are hearing about these cottage courts. We have in Dover, those of you that aren't aware of it, but John Randolph, who owns Harmony Homes, he built a development of a more affordable, smaller footprint, higher density little cottages, and they're built similar to the way these are in a round circle, and he's got several little pods of them. Cottage courts, we don't really have any in town. Could that be something we could look at? Where would we want it? Would we want it in the middle of our RB? Would we want it in a more rural area? I don't know. What do you think? And then the infamous multifamily residential. We only allow that in the downtown areas right now through conditional use. And we have had quite our college student center. They are purpose built to house college students. And that is their primary renter. That is who they market to. They allow a parent or a guardian to, as a guarantor on the lease, they are often paid by parents, or they are paid by the students out of student loans. They're very expensive. They're on average about $1,000 a bed, some more. And they are built not with a family in mind, not with an individual in mind, but a large pod of students to live together. Right now, we don't allow any multifamily housing in Durham other than for seniors. That's the only type you can have. And again, here are some, on the left, there's a picture of a newer version, and on the right, you see, again, an older version, probably from the late 1800s built. There's probably at least 4 units in that. Again, it was typical. Back in the day, we built what we needed, where we needed it. I'm not saying we should build it wherever we want, but these are not new ideas for the way to live. This is how we have lived as a society for a long time. Here's some more pictures of multifamily, just to give you an idea. Again, what do you like the looks of? What do you don't? Not that you'd be building it, but. Now, conservation subdivisions. Right now, the only type of residential subdivision that you can build in Durham is a conservation subdivision. And whereas the number of units is equal to the usable land divided by the minimum per dwelling unit for each district, in RA, that would RB, that's 40,000 for the land. RC is 150, rural is 150,000, OR is 4,200, and Moodor is 40,000, and Orley is 150,000. So those are, those are not really dense numbers. Those are pretty open numbers. So, should those be denser? Could we do more to provide, if the land is already going to be developed for a conservation subdivision, could we do more to create denser pocket of homes so that we get more out of that? And what would be that number you think would work? With a conservation subdivision, there's always open space, and that is the percent of the usable space per the zone, which is a different percentage per zone, and then plus any unusable. Significant amount of usable land that doesn't get built on in a conservation subdivision. And I would ask Michael Barrett, how many of these have been built since these? Do we have a lot?
Well, at the time,
Sorry, you got it.
okay.
You know the rules.
Just in the time that I've been here, 12 years or so, we've had very few subdivisions. More than the only subdivisions we've had is 2 lot, occasionally 3 lots. Lot line adjustments, but there's really only been one significant subdivision in all the years I've been here for 16 houses. And then there was one other one for about 7. And that's it. Considering how much land we have and how much open area, it's surprising how little development activity there is.
So 16 and 7, so.
Yeah, in the last 12 plus
years.
years.
So I mean, that would tell me we probably need to look at this, but I don't know. We have to look at what the community can take. So that would be a place where we could look at, you know, making some changes maybe. Single family home is another place we could create more density. Is very, very low. Rural zone has a minimum lot size of almost 3.5 acres. Large yard. People pay for it and they like it, but it does create expensive housing. And by the way, of things that you can still, you can't, you know, discriminate against a lot of things, but one thing that is still legal to discriminate against, and that is finances. It is still perfectly legal in this country and in this state and in this city to discriminate financially. And unfortunately, it starts to get that way when you're looking at very large homes that could do more. Yeah.
A question about students. You talk about discrimination. The problem that I've heard in the past is you can build certain kinds of housing that you think is for lower income, but it just gets taken over by students. How do you prevent that? Because you cannot discriminate.
Yeah, and you can't discriminate. We can't discriminate by age or anything like that. But in Durham, and right now we have just been working on a workforce housing overlay district amendment that we had to look at this very carefully. And that is, how do we allow someone to build a multifamily property yet don't turn it into student housing? And there's a couple of things. The first thing we put in, or the most important thing that we put in, is that it's not going to be overrun by students such as like those that are living in Madbury Commons, because we are putting in the amendment that the landlord would not take third-party guarantors on the lease. That if you're going to sign the lease and provide, you know, proof that the lease will be paid, you must live in the property. The Madbury Commons and all the ones that we have around here, even the ones on the cottages, the lodges, that is the first choice they give you. Who's signing for the lease? They know it is student focused. Also the locations, you know, we don't want them necessarily downtown close to the university. They're more out where the two areas that we've assigned. Students want to be able to walk. It's, you know. The other thing is that there's plenty of student housing right now. I mean, this is a good time because there is plenty of student housing. You know, the birth rate has gone down. It's hard to make new people quickly. It takes a couple decades to get them up to where they're going to college. But right now, all of the student housing complexes are actually down in their numbers, and they're looking at really reaching out to other people, and there are non-students living in them. And they actually, I believe they reached out to the university to get some grad students in there to give them a little bit cut in the price. But how a landlord divides his leases will show his intent as to who he's going to be renting for. And we also want to show that, you know, they're going to apply for housing. This is going to be, anything that is built is going to be needed, and it's going to have a lot of people now that are looking to apply for that now in the next 10 years.
Sally, a quick question, or Michael. Is there also a noticeable difference in the configuration of the apartments? I know student housing tends to be these separate bedrooms, a tiny kitchen. It looks very different from workforce housing. I assume that's something the code is silent on, how you arrange your bedrooms, but I don't know if that's another.
Well, it's something definitely the planning board would see. We would ask.
You can tell if there are 6 bedrooms and a pocket kitchen.
Yeah.
This is student housing, purpose built.
A bathroom per bedroom, or, you know, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths is not housing. The typical apartment is 2 bedrooms and a bath, maybe a bath and 3/4. You know, typical.
So it'll look different, but you have to rely on market forces to
Yes.
basically determine that students won't move in. Okay.
Yeah, there may be.
Or are unlikely to move
Yeah,
in.
they're not on the capacity that where they would take over, such as Madbury Commons, and that is that's a very tight line that the planning board was walking, because we cannot have that happen. We have to provide for everyone else.
I
you
think
know.
we have a.
You have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you want to wait later.
No, it's fine.
Okay,
It's
good.
not a question, it's mainly a statement, contribution to the discussion. So I live off of Young Drive, which is a Beardsbury community, and we actually got in the bylaws where we do not allow any owners of the duplexes to rent bedrooms to the house, to the students. So that's how we took care of that, or how it was taken care of in my community, so it's in the bylaws.
Yeah. Whoever signed the lease in Young Drive, they have to actually live there.
Yes, there's
Yeah.
majority, there's homeowners right now, but there's some renting units too, but they are not available
Just-
for
yeah,
for
yeah.
students.
And Young Drive has changed dramatically. It has a bad reputation back in the day, but it's really been gentrified by families and again, because it's a great opportunity. It's a great to show. They're pretty nice. I mean, they're smaller units, but they have, I think you've got 2 bathrooms in there, right?
3.
3, yeah.
One full bed and
And down, yeah, which is pretty good. And most of them have basements, so that's a good example of duplexes in a community that takes care of themselves. But there are definitely concerns with that in the community, and there are ways of making sure. And in working with a developer, and so the developer is well aware. Developers right now are hot for building housing for people, because, and then so you try to get some of that housing to be at an affordable rate. There's they need density. But we do take that in consideration. And so this is, again, should we, to purchase, for building new homes in Durham, do we need to cut that down? Does a rural zone need to be 3.5 acres? Maybe we could bring that down a little bit. I don't know. How do people feel about that? There's a lot of things to look at in that particular area.
Does some of this have to do with, city water and sewer?
Yeah, in Residence B, everyone's on city water, I believe. Is it A or B?
Residence A, everybody is on town water and sewer.
B is not.
Residence B, I know that the Foss Farm neighborhood, which is Residence B, is not on
It's
town
not.
water and
Some are
sewer.
not, yeah.
Some other areas of Residence B, maybe, I don't know for sure.
Yeah, it depends on how close they are to
I
town.
mean, you live in Residence
I'm in
B,
B,
are you on town water and sewer?
I'm on town, everything. Yeah.
But it's
Right.
across the other way, right? If you go this way, it's not, it's still water after the,
You gotta sit.
Oh.
You know the rules.
okay. Yeah, so there's a lot of the B is not on city, because when you go over into the neighborhoods across there, they're all on
Yeah, like
septic,
the
right?
Highlands are.
Yeah, basically, very few neighborhoods south of the Oyster River have town water and sewer.
They also used to be, the larger lot sizes were because it was not on, town sewer, and you had to have the septic systems. But so much has changed in terms of technology that smaller lot sizes really can manage, new designs of the septic systems and such. So like right now, I live in, RA, and I have almost a half-acre lot, and you could definitely fit another house on there. I've lived in many communities where, the lot size I had and the one my parents and I lived in were 0.25 acres. And so every time we expand that, we're creating more expense, because land is one of the bigger costs, right, of building a home. And because of our restrictive acreage, then we're causing more spread and less affordability in town.
Yeah.
But those have to be taken care of with understanding, can it happen for whatever development is brought in? What about septic, if you're not developing in the area that's already town water and sewer?
Yeah.
But it's a thought.
Yeah.
can be done.
Yeah, we still need a minimum
should
lot
say-
size if
you
you're
should-
on town water and sewer. It's a legitimate question of how big does that minimum need to be?
And that's something to take into consideration for the multifamily units. In the amendment that for the workforce housing, we did identify areas where that overlay would be used that has access to city water and city sewer. That's very important to developers to have that because of the cost. And especially when you're building these things, you're trying to keep the cost down. But it is something to take into consideration, and I know that could be something a lot of people have something to say about. So the other thing is greater density, increasing density, obviously, and infill. These pictures show, first of all, the one on the bottom left-hand show, of course, older homes. Dense communities are nothing new. They are what we used to have. People, again, you have actually several rows of duplexes there. They may actually be fourplexes. Up on the right-hand top, you have a picture of a single-family home that divided their lot and built another home. And actually, I think you got this picture. There may actually be two homes that were being built on that lot. But the white house there is an existing house, and then there's an existing home, and then they added these two. They added the lot and created smaller lots out of a large family lot.
Yeah, and the lot, the picture above that's green, obviously that's still under construction. It's actually close to being complete. And the White House, of course, was built somewhere in like the 1930s, I think. And you look at what they've put in that lot after it was subdivided, and the new home, and the way it all fits into the same style, really just shows what you can do with some of the infill. And the one on the bottom, you don't see the house on the left, but there's a light blue house first on the very, very edge of the frame on the right. Well, they're existing homes. One was built in like 1923, and the other's like from 1930 something. And they have very long lots. And they were actually then split up between a road and between the two of them. And as an infill project, I think somebody bought the two homes. There's a lot of homes that are going on the market right now on that road just because there's a lot of aging and homes going on the market. So they were able to build, I believe it's 6 homes. So if you're looking straight to the back, that home, and then there's a couple on each side of them as you head back down that road. And again, the style of the homes are really coherent with the existing homes that were there. And there's another development similar to that that's heading a little bit to the left of this picture that they've done that same concept. And they took the older homes that were degrading, fixed them up, left them there, and then did the infill project in their backyard. So they're smaller lots, but they're like 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes. And a lot of families don't want big yards anyway. And these actually bring in a nice shape to a community with a little bit more affordability because of the density. So those are infill projects that I found pictures of lately.
Yeah, so where there was one home, now there's like 7.
Yeah, or 2 and there's 6. Yeah.
It's thought, and could this be make use of this in some of our property in Residence A or in Residence B, and that is a consideration. So that's the end. So your thoughts, and we just want to hear what your concerns are, what your ideas are. That's the process of it. It's like making you give me your opinions. Yes.
I have a question. I just started to read, but didn't get through the whole full report.
Oh, right. Oh, it's pretty,
So
yeah.
Not
Yeah.
Let me start with that. So it's 40 pages or something. And my experience with the workforce housing goes back like 14-ish years now, shortly after the law had been passed in the state. At the time, one of the issues was the administration of maintaining the price with future sales and such. And I don't know what the current status of that is, or like in the whole state, like how many workforce defined, qualifying units based on the state law have been built recently. Do you know that?
I don't know how many. I know that building in general slowed down considerably after the last recession in the early, in the two knots. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in. Back in the early 2000s, they were building and then selling. And we all know what happened then. And in the banking had to change its way. And then there was a period of time in this country where there was no building going on at all. You look across the country and it was minimal, if any. And a lot of builders went out of business. So they certainly weren't looking for affordable housing because they didn't need to. Housing had gotten cheap. But around 2013, 2014, if you really started paying attention, you could see things starting to tick up because the supply had been filled in. Right now, they're starting to do more. And I don't have the numbers on how many in New Hampshire have been built recently, but they have started to tick up in the past, I would say, couple of years. Builders are starting to pay attention to this because, as I say, in the early, mid 2014, 15, 16, the housing prices started to tick up, and then we got hit with COVID, which just flooded the market with more people. So there was a economic thing that happened and a market thing that happened. People were buying second homes. There was a high sales of, wasn't helpful, but people were buying their getaway house. Now they're Airbnb-ing it, and it's made some changes. But I don't have the exact numbers on that, but they are starting to build.
The reason for the question is not academic. It's the practical side. Is like if you follow the state workforce guidelines, and if you're looking at that as sort of a solution, but if developers see the administration of the future sales price as an impediment to selling,
right,
and it also forces a discount on the sale price, which they don't like anyway. I don't know, if the law changed and there's more flexibility with that, or one of the things that I seem to recall in the past is that the towns could assume the responsibility for the administrative oversight of future sales values, which I think most towns don't want to do.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of wondering how much of your approach is really sort of stacked on the workforce housing concept, and is that really a viable concept from an administrative and sales point of view versus deal with the zoning issues and open up the land to...
Yeah. It's hard to look at all those little details. And the reality is that if somebody comes in and wants to build workforce housing, the first thing they're going to say is, I need density. Because they're not going to build it unless it's financially viable. They can't get the money to build it. The bank won't give them until they can prove the viability of it. And so these developers that are trying to do this are crunching numbers. You're not going to see, it's very rare to see 100% affordable or something that's set, you'll see builders go in and, like, say Exeter, I think they have like a 20%, they ask 20% to be workforce. But that number can be very different depending upon the community and the builder. So you see people building and then trying to add affordable units within it. It is a lot, and there are builders out there that do it that have to follow the rules and regulations that are put down by those grant programs that they're getting money from. And there's that, they have to, follow the rules, and they have to do a lot of reporting. No towns want to be doing that, and that's usually something that's handled by either if the town or the city has a housing authority, or the New Hampshire Housing does that things for those units that are strictly built as affordable housing that are based on on these. Other than that, you're and Michael can probably explain it more with the amendment that we made a suggestion about, that the rates would be set at HUD fair market, which is market, and HUD determines what your market is charging, but it's set at about a 40%. So it's kind of gives you a little bit less than market, but it's close to market. And then you can average within it. If a person makes more, they can pay a little more. If they make less, they can pay a little less, and so you can get this average mix of people in their financial ability. But I'm glad you brought that up with the for sale, because with the for sale, there are units, I believe we have some in Durham, that were built this house was built and it's in, for 30 years or 40 years, it has to be sold at a percentage off of market. That's built right into the deed. And a lot of people are resistant to that when it comes to for sale. But they have to build those smaller and they have to, and denser, because they're not going to build it, it's not going to be fitted out like the house you're selling market. Because they're never going to build anything that they're not going to be making some money on, or can at least break even on. And those rules are set in by the deed and would have to be followed by the deed and go, when you purchase a house. But they're a percentage off of market, and that you pay less, and in 10 years you've earned equity. You're going to sell it for less, but you've gained the same amount of equity in reality. One of the things that the state has seen is that rental units are really the thing that we are in dire need of, and they're the quickest and cheapest to build, and can provide housing for a wide variety of people. Michael's there.
Well, I think there's generally three goals with housing, and this includes the town of Durham. One is to have more housing, and Durham in particular has been very constrained. We have a lot of land that's in permanent open space, and our zoning in the outlying areas, which is more than half of the land, the yellow is rural and the light blue is residence coastal, it's very low density. It's a minimum 3.5 acres per lot. And when you do a subdivision, you have to remove the calculation. Certain sensitive lands is removed from that calculation, so the allowable density is even less than that. It's quite low. Depending on the parcel, it could be 1 per 4, 1 per 5 gross acres, so that's not much motivation. The motivation will be when someone subdivides for only a handful of lots out of a large parcel. You've got to sell them for a lot of money. So we are not producing much housing. Durham, we have produced over the years, certainly in the last 15 years, a lot of student housing. We've added several thousand units because we did have high density in the core areas, and there has been a huge market, obviously, for student housing. And we have built a lot of senior housing, witness Riverwoods. But you could see by some of the changes in the demography in Durham, we have a lot of seniors now, affluent seniors who can afford it, and some dense projects that we've built. And then obviously a lot of students. And traditionally we've had a lot of families because the school district's a big draw. But those numbers in the middle 35 to 50 or so have dropped a lot, surprisingly. So even the families that have historically come to Durham for the school district, not many can afford it anymore. So in general, in Durham, I think it would benefit this community and certainly the state and the country. We just need a lot more. We need volume. We need a lot more housing units. For a number of reasons over the last generation, the economics of building, there's been a real disconnect. The market is not providing, not even enough market. You need more volume. The second is we certainly need more affordable housing. As you can see in Durham and places like Durham, where land prices, it may be $500,000 or more for a vacant lot, and a house in the Faculty Road neighborhood might sell for $600,000 or $700,000 now, which is unheard of.
Yeah, data point on that. I live in the Faculty neighborhood. The land value of my house is $264,000, and it's non-compliant because the lot is smaller than the minimum for Residence A.
Yeah, so I mean, even Faculty Road, which is kind of the quintessential smallish, semi-affordable, true neighborhood, is not very affordable anymore. So again, that is a real goal is affordability. What does affordability mean? What's affordable for one person is not affordable to another. But I think most of us know it when we see it. It's housing prices that seem reasonable, that a working family can afford without paying half of their income for. And then the third goal is choices in types of housing, what we call missing middle. Has anyone heard that term? Missing middle? It's a great term because over the last, really since World War II, most of the housing that's been built in this country is either single-family houses, often on large lots, in single-family subdivisions with just one use, or large multi-family apartment buildings. You know, you see a number of them like on 155 going into Dover. They're pretty unattractive, but they do provide a lot of housing. But there's usually no place you can walk. They're not very attractive. And there's not that much of a sense of community. Whereas think of in the past places like Portsmouth and Manchester and many of the older towns, the suburbs around Boston, all the suburbs around Boston, you had this harmonious mix of housing, these small single-family houses, duplexes, some of these small cottage courts, even a 4 or 8 unit apartment building that was attractively designed, triple deckers in Boston, lots of accessory dwelling units. And Durham's great for that. We have lots of them because of the students. And shops above, and apartments above shops. But again, those are the missing middle. We just have the single family now and the big apartment. So affordable means different things. But the ordinance that Durham has now before, the planning board has now before a public hearing next week is actually fairly affordable. The program in the ordinance is to keep rents a little below market level with a pretty generous density as an incentive to build a pretty dense multifamily rental at affordable levels. So we'll see what happens with the ordinance. So the thing that Sally showed you a half a dozen opportunities to expand housing, and we really want to hear from you. What do you think about more accessory dwelling units? 2 on a lot where there's a big lot, duplexes, infill in town.
I think Charlie.
Multifamily. Yeah. Anyway, so we just want to hear what you think. Should we be doing this? Where and how?
Super. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Information. So just to quickly go as in the spirit of a resident, I'm definitely for reduced density requirements, both in the outer district and infill and in town. I also live in the faculty neighborhood. We're on I think a little less than a half an acre lot, and it's one of the more, I don't know, it's just been a great and very strong neighborhood for all kinds of reasons. Of different housing types, duplexes well done, and multifamily dwellings, especially in that middle size, not, of multifamily, but in the place that Michael put it. We just spent a year in Sweden, and that's their standard model.
Yeah.
Energy Committee hat, I think that shared roof, that shared envelope, the materials, everything you said, I think we would support just from an energy point of view on sharing some of those systems in the house. Central courtyards for shared amenities. I think very interesting things happen with bike storage, EV charging for residents and things like that if you have those inner courtyards. I know a lot of my friends are looking to downsize, but we can share like storage areas and common rooms. We don't necessarily want to live in a tiny condo. So I would be open to that personally. And then with the energy hat on, if there's any way to encourage passive house or incentivize a passive house standard or the equivalent, energy bills are what are going to kill these renters and so can't stress enough getting that envelope correct, getting the energy costs as low as possible. To me, that's the other, in a winter climate, that's the other half of your rent bill. That's with energy inflation. So that's it.
And that's actually quite significant in building energy efficient homes, because the cost to pay heat and cool
exactly.
is
If there's
a lot.
anything we can do, if we're providing any other kind of subsidy, that would be an amazing I think there's the most funding for workforce housing and passive house because of this connection between your monthly kitchen table bill and energy inflation.
Yeah.
John?
Well, yeah, I'll ask a question. When I came to UNH in '82, I was told as a faculty member that I'd need to look in places outside of Durham because it just wasn't affordable for faculty to live there. And I think it's only gotten worse. And yet when I hear the term faculty neighborhood, I wonder about the history of that. I think, was the university at one point involved in making?
Absolutely.
Yes.
The houses were sold
Yeah.
to staff and faculty. It was almost completely, and the prices were something like $5,000. It was an astonishing deal.
Right. Well, I guess I'm getting at the question, are you working in tandem with the university? Because if you think about workforce housing, UNH is the largest
Who's the
employer
workforce?
in the state, right? Or one of the top ones. And it seems they would have an interest in that. I know when we would have faculty searches, we lost a lot of good candidates because they just said we can't live in Durham, but we don't want to be commuting from Boston or Portland.
Forest Park is gone.
Forest Park, which was a place that we managed to find housing for some of our faculty, is gone. It seems to me, and I'm not speaking from knowledge here, I left the university 3 years ago, but it seems to me the university has shifted to making kind of Club Med experiences for undergraduate housing at the expense of workforce housing. And I'm just wondering is there any kind of town-gown cooperation on this? Because it's an important issue for them as well.
Yeah, right now,
Good
no.
question.
Unfortunately, we don't really have that. The most we have right now is in their hopes to build the West Edge development that they're looking at, and they've said that they will include a housing component in there. But they're going to be including bringing jobs in too. So if you're bringing jobs, you're bringing in people. So therefore, you must bring in housing. So there is great hope that they will include some sensible housing, especially since the university is focusing on grad students to help them pay the bills now, since there's not as many college students. But those grad students are very challenged in finding housing that's close by and that's affordable as well. It's a challenge, but the university could do more. As to you work there, I mean, it's it's challenging to get them to, but housing is becoming a focus with everybody, whereas, just a few years ago, no one talked about it. I was watching, Kamala Harris introduce her vice president and the first thing she talked about was, housing and healthcare, and housing was the first thing.
Affordable.
But even housing in general, it's an inventory problem, and that's why it's gotten so expensive, because we've all taken economics. If you've never taken an economics course, I don't know how you got away with that, because we've all had to take that class. It's all supply and demand, and the supply has to be increased.
Right. Well, I'm surprised that there's no communication with the university about this topic. Maybe there is, but it seems like this would be a good time. There's a new president.
Yeah.
Because it is in the university's best interest to have affordable housing for the workforce. And so it seems like it could be a win-win.
Yeah. We have had the university come in and talk about their West Edge and their plans for that, but it might be a good time to invite, to another, a meeting to ask, just kind of push it home a little bit more.
Yeah, the university president, I believe, is scheduled to appear at the council meeting next week, and that's possibly something we could discuss.
Yeah, housing is an important issue, and they're the ones that want to bring people here, but the housing is.
Yeah.
I do want to keep this rig rolling.
Okay, yeah, so it's, one of the thoughts I've had is whether we could find a place to build townhouses or row houses as part of that missing middle. So it would be, you sort of have your own house, but you don't have a yard to go with it. So there would be lots of advantages to that. Mm-hmm. I've also wondered why we don't include the professional office district in where we're allowed to build mixed use even under conditional use, because that's Fraternity Row. The average person who looks at Durham with no familiarity of the zoning code would never guess that residential is not an allowed use in that zone.
Yeah, we've talked about that. I don't know. We were talking, I think that, yeah, what's allowed and where we allow it, that would be an interesting, yeah. You had your hand up.
For your records, I would just endorse completely the idea that smaller lot sizes in the rural areas, absolutely. I mean, the technology now and the septic systems are much different. You can do stuff on much less land. That's still really good quality, effluent. And certainly the multifamily also in terms of the energy
Right.
potential
Yeah.
savings.
Yeah, the one caveat I have on that is residents coastal, those are the areas that are going to be most susceptible to sea level rise. I would
It's not
discourage
included.
development in those
It's not
regions.
included
Yeah.
in the zoning recommendations in their document
Okay.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
like that district is excluded from all of the recommendations in here. Anyway.
Just a question, what percentage of the cost of a new home is actually construction cost as opposed to land and other things? What I was getting at is the technology for home building seems to have not really changed much in the last 50 or 60
Yeah.
years. There are some new techniques, kind of half factory built or trucked in sections and things. Is there any thoughts about trying to cut costs?
That depends on the builder, but, and they do try to keep their, depends on what they're building. You know, if you decide I want you to build my dream house, it's a completely different thing.
Right.
Land is very expensive, and it's the one thing, we can build more houses, but we can't build more land.
My dad's built about 1,000 houses. It's about 60% of the final cost. 20% is land, 60% is construction, 20% is profit is like the rule of thumb that most home builders go by.
So I didn't know.
No, there's 20% more there. 40% is land, sorry.
I didn't know if there was anything in our codes or other things that either inhibits or encourages innovative building techniques or concepts.
Yeah, I mean, a density bonus would definitely allow for that of a energy efficient code as opposed to a standard code like the one that's coming. Like if there was a financial mechanism to encourage.
Right, which I believe has recently come into effect that mandates that if whatever density bonuses we offer for senior housing, we also have to offer for workforce housing.
Right.
Yeah.
So if those bonuses are also tied to energy efficient building practices, we're therefore encouraging the proliferation of those practices. I mean, to me, that's where the issue in our goals is of the built environment and the total carbon expenditure per capita of the built environment compared to the rest of our town. If we're increasing the number of residents, the incremental cost of each individual resident on a carbon basis should be lower than what has previously been the case. So if that occurs through increased development, that is also occurring utilizing energy efficient construction practices, that legitimizes it to me. Otherwise, we're just looking at a larger carbon footprint and a problem with our climate goals, regardless of whether or not our workforce needs are met, or if all that stuff eventually becomes student housing anyway, because things change over time. Yeah.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much.
Well, thank you, and yeah, we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because this is where we can actually talk to them. Thanks.
Thank you guys.
We really do appreciate, because we know this was a little out of the usual, but we were asking you to put your hats on, not just your
It was fun.
So we do appreciate your help.
Well, underneath the Durham hat is the energy hat, so I mean,
Well,
because that's in the
yeah.
scalp, it's
Snuck
natural.
a passive reference in anyway.
But that's the point, you guys already, you have a focus that you're already interested
Yeah.
in, so it's gonna come out.
Yeah, thank you
And
very much.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all this work.
Oh, thanks. It's fun.
Kind of, really. See you soon.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Already
It's almost
So
tomorrow.
So you didn't come back in to get sworn in, right? I forget what you had to do to accomplish that.
Just go to the town clerk anytime, anyone there.
Right,
and they
that's
read
what I
you
thought I did.
a one pager and you sign it and it goes on file. So
Maybe I've done it. I don't know. I would have to.
Did you go in that office right there?
No, I've been there plenty of times, but probably not for swearing in.
Yeah,
yeah, they'll,
it's really straightforward.
Okay.
But
you don't remember holding your right hand up.
Yeah.
I think I've mercifully done that one other time in my life.
yeah, for the rest of the night, you can sit right there.
Sure.
If you have something you want to say, like, I think we're all okay with that, right?
Absolutely. I sat at
Yeah.
the table, but just didn't vote.
Yeah.
All right.
So that was fun. I think when the zoning ordinance comes across our desk, like, I think we just want to tie as much as we can to some kind of energy conscious code regulations when it comes to these buildings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Growth. With no regulation.
Yeah.
Is
a
why
nightmare.
the housing crisis she mentioned happened in the first place. Yeah.
I had a little confusion reading Em's comments, and is she joining us remotely tonight about the?
No, unfortunately, she had a conflicting commitment.
Okay.
I can bring up her comments though.
Yeah, if you could just explain.
Their comments.
I gather there's a time-limited period when we can bring in some code requirements to that or something?
Yeah, so I believe what Em was looking for was a motion on our part to recommend that any density bonuses that the town participates in are those developments are required to use the energy code in addition to the standard building code.
Okay, can you explain, I understand there is a state law that somehow retroactively made our more aggressively good energy policy
Yes.
unenforceable.
As I understand it, the building code has been standardized, and as a part of that, the use of additional building code mechanisms like an energy code is outlawed, with the caveat that if you're utilizing certain incentive mechanisms, you can still have those rules. So the energy code as written, from what I understand, will going forward not necessarily be valid because it is a separate section outside of the building code. Do I have that about right?
I think so. I think the energy code was in the NEC,
Yes.
a section, and I think what the state says, you can't incorporate that as a requirement to the 2018 building code, which
Right,
international
and they're
building code.
refusing to adopt the 2023, which ironically just came out this year.
Well, the state's always behind the ball.
No, well, the NEC is always notoriously like at least 18 months behind on like the year of the code it puts out. But yeah, so
There seems to be a widespread belief in the legislature that every effort must be made to make construction costs as low as they can without making obvious safety sacrifices, which is why they don't want to go with anything beyond the National Standard Building Code.
So if we've lost our latest published code, am I understanding correctly that the only way to do it is to tie it to a subsidy or to a special program like a density waiver?
Yeah, so it's, I just pulled up her email.
And if so, I'd totally be for that. If we need to make a motion to say that's exactly what you were talking about in your last comment.
Yes, I believe the generalized request is for us to have a motion to vote for pushing to adopt the town's current energy standards into the density bonus provision of the workforce housing ordinance. Those are all the important words.
Should we make a,
Can we just
Yeah,
make
please
a
make
motion?
that motion.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we transfer the town's current energy code to the, and I'm going to miss this next word, to, as a condition of the
Density
Density bonus.
bonus
For the workforce housing
for the
ordinance.
workforce housing ordinance.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? I'm in favor. I think that makes a lot of sense. Hopefully, ideally, things will change and we'll be able to have a more definitive use of energy code as legislation changes.
Whatever happened to home rule? I mean, that kept us from being Onassis's refinery.
But New Hampshire is not a home rule state. An exception was specifically made for the refinery.
Yep, ironically.
So looking at the agenda, I know there were some like must-dos, right?
Yeah, let's...
Steve, I think you had a must-do, right, for CPC&H?
Uh-huh. And the other thing I really want to I just want to give you a chance to go over the EV charging stuff that you worked on.
Oh, sure.
But I have charging first. Is that cool? Yeah.
Okay, I'll be quick. I mean, a week before the deadline, the Stratford County Planning contacted Steve Pesce at UNH and me to say that we needed to basically write a grant for each of the spots that we put. When they asked us, just dream up spots.
Yeah.
You don't need to even check if it's viable. And so we came up with, I think, 9 for the town of Durham, and UNH had 6 or 7. So UNH just could not do it in a week. I mean, they have budget processes that are July 1, and they can't commit to this kind of thing.
So you
Todd
did.
thought we should go ahead with it. So we came up with 3 proposals, or two proposals to do this. So the grant requires a minimum of 4 charging ports for each one. So we decided it would be worth proposing an expansion in the Pettybrook parking lot, and then putting 4 EV chargers out at the Depot Road Amtrak station parking. So I got it in. It was kind of, whatever data I could muster, I put it in, made it look official, and sent it off. So they've received it, and I guess I'll probably hear the night before the next phase is due. But the reason, what's happening is this is the CFI grant, which is the charging and fueling infrastructure, federal money, the $1 billion, or 1.3 billion.
And we didn't have. You want to do the percentages on what the town has to put in for?
Well, so it's an 80-20 funding. Yeah. Federal money is 80%, and the local municipality it can work with the private company as well to come up with that 20%. So it's an incredible deal.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think makes this one have a pretty good chance is that the State Department of Transportation and the Department of Environmental Services have decided to write one big one for the state. And so they're asking towns to submit their proposals. The CFI grant has a minimum of $500,000 grant. So you can imagine if Durham were trying to go it alone, we'd have to really come up with a big project. So.
Everybody gets chargers.
Everybody gets level 3 chargers.
Yeah.
You get a charger, you get a charger, you get a charger, and everybody gets a
Chicken in
charger.
every pot.
For anyone who wasn't on
And the
this,
new substation burns down.
for anyone who wasn't on this distribution list, I'll say just out loud, thank you so much for both identifying it, for narrowing down the list, and then coming up with, an incredibly efficient way to take one long application with many detailed questions and then copy it and mint it, and it was impressive to watch. So thank you.
Same. While I was completely unable to help you.
Yeah, no, you came at a bad time. I mean, August 1, everybody's vacation.
You had just arrived. I was in Mexico. It was not.
I was planning my wife's decade birthday party and trying to juggle all that stuff.
I was helping negotiate
My
for.
mom was in town.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bizarre way to long-range plan, but it seems like that's the way New Hampshire is either going to miss the federal money or get it. So we might as well throw
You got to be ready when someone lets you know.
I'll say out loud too that Todd was incredibly helpful and responsive, including on the weekend, and DPW and a number of other town folks came through with immediate answers.
Yeah.
That is not the norm, as I know it. It is the norm in Durham, but it's not the norm more generally.
Yeah, no, Todd really helped out at DPW too.
Astonishingly motivated.
Great
And
stuff.
we kept hope alive on one last kind of dream project, which was trying to get a fast charger in Gasoline Alley. And it was kind of a cold call. I talked to the manager there, and then she talked to her boss's boss's boss. And Todd made his contacts. And finally, we just decided today that it's clear they don't have an interest. As of a week ago, some of the people we spoke to said, this sounds really interesting. The company's interested. Let's see what happens. But it turns out the owners said no. And I pushed just a little bit more to say, you realize it's an 80% discount on the product because they were saying it's too expensive. And they came back and said no. So, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, for the CPCNH status, there's two parts I wanted to go over. One is we're in a new rate period, so I did send this out in an email earlier this afternoon, so if you've had a chance to read this. But the new rate period goes from August 1st to January 31st. CPCNH has been able to put together rates that are very aggressive and lower than Eversource. So that's obviously good news for everybody. So what's different this time is that when we joined CPC, Todd had direction from the council that going forward, if CPC&H has a rate plan that, as long as it's lower than the default from Eversource, we could set our default plan for the town to be some above, more green than the basic rate. So, consistent with the town's objective for, carbon footprint reduction in our master plan and all these things, this was viewed as one of the quickest ways we could make an impact in our carbon footprint is to move people into a greener, energy plan. So, in this latest period, what we did was, with Todd's decision to accept or to go to Granite Plus as the default for town residents, it goes to 33% renewable energy versus 24%, which is the Eversource and the Granite Basic. It's still an 11% reduction from what the Eversource rate is, but it's not the lowest. If you went with Granite Basic, it would be a 17% reduction over Eversource. So now this raised questions. There were questions raised last meeting about how does this all work, and are people going to be good with this? It sounds like we're raising rates for people against their will.
Todd and I checked on it.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah. So legally, it's all good. It's part of the whole the way that this whole mechanism works is it's called the opt-out philosophy, right? So in order to do anything measurable, you have to make it a default or nothing ever happens. So what it means is that people who have not specified a particular plan that they want, then they're considered in the default bucket. And the default bucket can be moved by the town to be, under different plans. So, but anyone can change their plan at any time, but it has to be on their initiative. And once they change to a different plan, then that plan stays in effect for them until they change again. So then they're not in the default bucket anymore. So we have to communicate this over the next whatever period of time as people start to understand what this means. Hopefully, there'll be not a huge uproar of people feeling like they've been misled or something. But I wanted to get this out to this team, to you guys help be ambassadors, to help people understand that this is, you still have a choice. You can just call these websites, and if you want the Granite Basic rate to get the lowest possible rate, go for it. And once you pick that, you'll always get Granite Basic until you call up again and change it. So
there's no opting back into the default?
That's my impression. You can't go, yeah. I don't know, maybe there is. So you could go to,
You know what I'm saying?
you could go back to the default bucket, is what you're saying.
Yeah, if I go, I want Granite Basic, and then a year goes by, and I'm like, I trust the town, I just want to go back to default.
No, good question. I'll ask about that.
If the criterion was, you are on the thing that is the default, and then it changes and you move up, that would allow, like, all you'd have to do is go to the 33, and then you would be sort of back in the default pool. I'm hearing that there's actually a database entry that I've made a choice. If I go to the 33 and it happens to be the default, I'm still in the status of
Self-select.
having selected it.
The way
I've somehow
it was-
dirtied my account in a good way.
The way it was explained to me is that the default is like the initial status that was set up for like all ratepayers who are part of the automatic opt-in. And then once you opt a certain way, you have the status of whatever plan you select.
Regardless of whether it's the default or not.
Yeah.
The little Boolean is passive,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
switch. Got
And
it. Okay.
usually they're extremely basic systems anyway.
This is not like version today, but like
Yeah.
over time,
Yeah, no, I
people,
see what
like,
you're getting
the
at.
default pool will shrink
Yeah.
because people will make changes.
New people adding, new people
Yeah,
moving out.
Except that, when new people
It's a
move
lot
in.
of churn.
When new people move in, they get put in the default.
Every new
pool.
renter at the same residence is going to default in.
So-
And if the house sells, the new owner would be in the default bucket.
Yeah.
Right.
Until and unless they opt for a different plan.
And as you said, the number of student accounts is shocking. Like our turnover rate for a town
It's
is
probably
extraordinary.
remarkable. Yeah, so
Hundreds.
I'll bet our default pool actually stays pretty
Yeah.
consistent with
And-
that turnover.
And not only that, the turnover, unfortunately, the turnover goes back to Eversource as the default.
Oh, that's a bummer. Okay.
Until
I get it.
until CPC&H can come through on like a quarterly basis with a new letter people and then sweep those people into
And sweep them.
CPC&H.
Oh, it has a disclosure.
But
So
yeah,
there's a lag.
there's a lag. So there's a turnover, and then on like a quarterly basis, we go out and try to pick
It
up
will be
those.
interesting to see what that group of subscribers consists of over time.
Just on that subject, and we were remiss that I didn't follow up with the landlord association. I hope you did. I tried calling, but I could never reach them on phone. But
Sounds
I
like
did
some
go.
landlords.
I did go to the website, and I went through, there was like 15 or so, I went through about 13 of the listings for properties for rent under the landlord association. 10 of the 13, the electric utilities included in the rent.
Interesting.
The
So it
three that
stays.
weren't all looked like bigger, newer buildings.
That makes sense. I mean, if I was renting out my place, I really wouldn't want to deal with having to help a new tenant every time.
Yeah, the landlord doesn't want
15 meters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it costs money to put the meters in
The
initially.
meter
too.
cost alone used to kill old landlords.
So does that mean that the churn is less?
I think, well, we were debating this at the last meeting, and
Yeah, that's
from just a
interesting.
very quick research of small sample, but it looks like the vast majority our
Hello,
electricity is included in the rent.
Yeah.
So
Ah.
it's probably not
Hi.
in the turn thing because it goes to the landlord.
Steve, one
Yeah.
question. So thanks for the update. If somebody wants to check their current status
Yeah.
without looking at their bill,
That is an issue that we're trying to address because, so right
I know
now.
we got an email. I'm responding.
Yeah, so right now, if you get, and I think, Em, I think one of your emails had to do with this, but if you look on your bill, Eversource prints the bills, okay? They give us a very small text window to put in who your alternate supplier is. That window doesn't have enough information to say CPC&H rate plan XYZ. So all it says basically is CPC&H or Direct Energy or whatever.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, you can't just look at your bill and see what rate plan I'm on.
Right.
You have to look at the actual numerical rate
Exactly. You can
and
see
go
the
back
amount.
to the website and figure out, oh, that's Plan B. So
I'm
it's,
just as far as CPC&H, like when you enroll,
Yeah.
you have to give them your Eversource account number
right.
and your name and information. It'd be nice if they said, you're currently at blah.
They seem to have no login and no status. There's no memory. It's like a work order system.
Yeah.
You know, they can accept work orders and then process them, but they have no memory and recall.
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing stateful.
Yeah.
You don't log in and say, this is
Well,
my
but-
relationship with you, which is
But they do
the
know
next
whether or
level
not
of development.
you're eligible. So like if you had solar or net metering, they'd boot you out. So like there's,
Yeah,
there's some.
I've worked on software systems for the solar side of this, interfacing with the utility billing systems, and they are literally using like COBOL.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying Eversource. I'm saying CPC&H. I guess a
Right,
request
but
would
you're
be-
only as good as the data set you're talking to. So like it's a historical problem for retail energy providers, like overall, because you have to set up the service before you.
I'm not willing to concede. I think there's some requests we can make to CPC.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
that-
saying the utility makes it really hard to get it ready ahead of time.
Yeah.
That, I think, I mean,
because of the
that's a
access issues.
legitimate question, and it has come up before.
And I think as we change rates, people are going to want to know, like, they're going to lose track. Like,
Yeah.
where am I at now?
Right, and
Like,
we're trying to go into an opt-up program where
Yeah.
people are going to opt up, and we want them to be able to tell,
Exactly.
My only
am I
point is-
opted up or not? You know,
Yeah.
did it work? Yeah,
My
so,
only point is like, it's not surprising that it's an issue now. It's a problem if it takes a year for them to figure out.
But I guess, and I feel, so like, you have reports that say, you know, out of 100% of Durham residents, 20% are in this plan, 20% are in this plan, you know, whatever. Like, we know who's in what plan.
I mean, at an aggregate level.
But CPC&H knows at an individual level.
I guess, it just, the visibility is not to us. I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. So I'm just saying, like,
Yeah, so.
it feels like,
Yeah, so I'll take that back again to CPC&H and say, you know, what is, because I've heard this from other
Yeah.
communities too.
Classic customer portal.
Yeah,
You ask
exactly.
for this.
I want to know what I signed up for. Why can't I figure that out?
This is when you signed up and this is when you changed it. And
yeah.
it's just,
I'm not looking, you know, we're not looking for much. Now, and I haven't
Yeah.
looked at the bill, and I haven't looked at my bill enough, more than just to see that it says CPC in it. But is there a just a chart or something that we could post on our website, and we could ask people, save people, look at your bill if you want to know what. If you want to know what plan you're with, look at your bill, and you know,
Yep.
look at these numbers and say if your numbers are in this range, or you know, whatever. This is the plan that you're in, because
just
you
like
can,
a
you can start off
decoder.
explaining to
Yeah.
people that CPC&H does not have that capability yet. It is being worked on, and they don't have it. In the meantime, here's a chart. Put it right on our website.
Well,
and say,
hopefully, yeah. So there is a mailing
You're here.
there's a mailing that's going out to Durham residents, and then over the next month, an email explaining this whole default change for the town, and this is a draft of the letter that's going out that I included. And they're gonna go out in waves. They didn't want to send the emails to everybody at once, because then their customer service people will get inundated with everybody at once. So they're putting them out. So that's why I'm hoping that you guys can keep your ear to the ground, and when your neighbors call you and say, what the hell is going on? You know, you'll be able to help them with that. And we'll probably put something like this in one of the Friday updates, or and we should put it on the website under the Energy Committee stuff at some point.
That's one of the last things that I do want to cover, unless you have any other
No,
important points.
I think that's it.
Yeah, my assumption is that they would send it out at your meter read date in August, whenever that might be. So mine is relatively late.
I don't know.
Em has something, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Em, you had a question?
I was just gonna ask if it might be possible that basically that email instructions that I wrote to, I think to the two folks who've written into the DEC email, if CPCNH could write up like a how do I check if I'm already
Right.
on green power, and then we could put that on our website and direct people to that. I think that would be really helpful if that's something that that you might be able to do with CPCNH.
Or the, you
Yeah.
took a stab at it with the week 1 of your announcements table too.
Take a sample bill, circle exactly where the supplier amount is, take that chart that you were mentioning and say, as of this date, unfortunately there are 2 charts. There's the previous rate, so 8.1 cents no longer exists. There's the new chart, and so there's an awkward moment where your bill is lagging, but that's a great
In the early days of the community solar software I helped build, we had to have a graphic where we called out the section of their bill that would say what they were enrolled in, and then we had to coordinate that with their email address and send them the portion of the credits that they got off of the community solar bill. And then I built the platform where they could look at their bills, so it was fine. But for a while, we had to do a few things, just to keep people comfortable.
Okay, so I'm going to take an action item to go back to CPCNH and press them on getting this capability. And 2, I'll put up this stuff on our town website so we can point people to it and say, here's how you figure out what plan you're on. And
I wouldn't say so much press as maybe just an expectation. We just like to know when they're expecting on bringing an internet portal up for people. Because I know they might have it planned for X months in the future or something like that.
I'll ask.
Yeah. It's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, really.
So the other topic is the Seacoast Energy Challenge, which is this kind of informal competition that we've talked about briefly in the past. So Durham, Newmarket, Dover, Portsmouth, and Exeter have challenged each other to this opt-up challenge to try to see how many residents we can get to move up to a higher green. Now, Durham kind of, if we wanted to win this contest, we wouldn't have upgraded everybody in the town to Granite Plus.
Well, when's the start? When's the start of the competition?
The competition started with the rate plan change.
August 1st.
So it's going to be August 1st of January.
Oh, okay.
In the same time period as the rate plan. So there's no rush. We have to do something tomorrow, but. Anyway, and deliberately, because of this shift in the basic plan, the default plan, we wanted to kind of from the Seacoast Challenge information and not overwhelm people with too much churn going on at the same time. So I think we want to, wait a beat like a month or so before we start our Seacoast Challenge publicity stuff, so people don't get kind of open.
That's a smart idea.
So, but anyway, so what I'm suggesting or hoping for is that if people would like to volunteer, or we do one of our, subcommittee, not subcommittee action groups, whatever we call them, to work on this Seacoast Challenge thing, ideas, carrying them out, we've got a lot of ideas. We could use more. There's others, trading ideas with the other towns. I think it could be pretty interesting, and I'm looking for interested people.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help you. And Steve, if you send this out, I'll look for your email and read it more carefully. I guess what are the rules established across, like when's the start and the end, to the end?
Yeah, so the start is August 1st. There's going to be like a baseline. We've actually coordinated with some of the accounting people at CPC&H who are going to kind of work some specific metrics to track. And it's going to be based on percentages, so the town size will not be as big a factor. So it's what percentage people opt up, et cetera, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And so, for Durham, it's going to be anybody who opts up into Clean 50 or Clean 100, because our default is already Granite Plus. So we have a little bit tougher bar for us. But anyway.
But I guess, yeah, if the default for 33%, went into effect August 1st?
Yeah.
So the line should have been snapped before that, right? So in one sense, we should be way ahead of everybody else. So like,
You're right.
No, I mean, 'cause
Yeah.
it's like, hey, what was it before August
Yeah,
1st?
right.
And then
Yeah.
what is it now?
Yeah.
Like, we should have a pretty substantial lead.
Yeah.
Unless I'm thinking about it wrong.
Well, it's really an opt-up
Moving the starting line.
competition. That's an individual
so not the
action,
default.
so having the town
Yeah.
do something is not really
Yeah,
fair.
so.
Now there is still potential that there's another prize that will be for the greatest carbon reduction percentage, and we may win that hands down because we've converted the whole town to 33%. So
Yeah, this is a tricky thing.
you
Is
know.
like we're in one sense we made the default 33. That doesn't count for the competition. Then we're going to go tell everybody to go to 50, which is going to take them out of the default, and they can't get back into it.
No, but it'll put them into.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like going back to our
exactly.
conversation before.
State law does not allow us to set the default higher than the 33%
Yeah,
plan. Because
I get it.
under the rate table, if we were simply allowed to pick whichever one had the greatest renewable content that was less than the Eversource default rate, then our default rate would be the 50% one.
Yeah.
Because that one
So the
is
state
still
law-
cheaper than Eversource.
There's a state law that doesn't allow that?
CPC.
I thought it was the CPC&H.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
I'm not sure whose rule it is, but
It's
somebody has
CPC&H,
that.
it's not state law.
Yeah.
CPC&H has that rule to prevent them from needing to procure RECs that don't exist with a large influx of requests for higher amounts of renewable energy that they're not expecting.
Okay. All right, so that's all I think I wanted to cover. So anyway, read through the stuff that I sent out. I think there's some interesting things about, telling people we're taking 300 cars off the road each month by moving the town to this newer plan, more green energy, etc.
What kind of cars?
An average EPA car.
Internal combustion cars.
EPA internal combustion puts out X number of,
Can I double check that my email has circulated around? I'm not sure I got the note if I'm on the list yet. Em's been having to
okay.
email me things.
I sent it to DEC.
Okay,
You're not on that?
then I'll try to solve it at that level.
If you don't have it, let me know. I sent it out this afternoon, so it's a
I'm
little late.
supposed to do that. Remind me to do that.
Okay.
Just a super quick question, Steve, about the Seacoast Challenge. Is there going to be like an official website page on CPC&H or anything about that? Otherwise, I can, in the blurbs for Friday updates, I can just link to there's a Seacoast Online article about it and an NHPR article about it. So I could just link to one of the articles if there's not going to be a website per se.
Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be a website per se, but yeah, you could link to those articles. They did put out a press release, so you could link to one of those articles. But I think it's good. It's something else that should also be, put on our town website, and we can point people to it. And hopefully we can get a little bit of competitive juices going here. We can have a month by month counting, and get a horse race going in this.
Yeah, it'd be nice if CPCNH hosted that,
The webpage?
the stats, the
Yeah.
horse race.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, in order for it to be competitive, you need to know, am I ahead of Dover or am I
Yeah,
behind Dover, you
yeah.
know, like, and you need a third party, like if Durham was hosting it.
Well, they're providing the statistics, so
Yeah.
they ought to be able to, okay, I'll ask if they
Yeah.
can
To
provide some.
gamify it in some way.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a lot harder to like drive interest without that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So, the only other things that I know of that we have is, I don't know if everyone got to see M's blurbs and got to look at the back, which has just kind of a generalized content plan proposal.
How would one have gotten the blurbs? Is that an email or is that,
This is for inclusion in the Friday updates.
But I drove to M's house and picked these up
Oh,
right
okay.
beforehand, so I'm sorry if you haven't read it. But the back is the, a few weeks of a plan of the Friday updates. To me, this seems like a great starting point and a great way for us to just get going. I think when it, this will require a few volunteers. I think we can do a working group with this, especially when it comes to proofreading and wordsmithing the blurbs. To me, in spirit, this all makes sense. If any issues with the process come up, I think we just amend them later on. I think outside of going too deep into this, I think the only question is who else would like to join Em on working on this? It said 2 to 3-ish people to be webmasters is probably provided. We've got one.
So just so I understand the ask, so Em, it looks like you have 4 weeks of content. So you're just asking for help in generating future weeks. Is that what you're asking? Like,
So I did August, and I'm hoping we can approve these blurbs and say we have content for August. And then I'm hoping someone else will sign up now for September.
oh, I see.
We
Okay.
can keep rotating through.
Gotcha.
And whoever signs up, they just have to come up with 4 to 5 blurbs like this, and submit them by Thursday at noon to Karen and Craig in order to get on social media and Friday updates.
Gotcha.
And then I threw out some other kind of like ideas in that plan, like, I'm suggesting a title for the blurb so that people start to recognize of using the switches on, but
Like
if people hate that, we can certainly come up with something else.
No, I think it's awesome.
I think it's a great working title.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Did you have something?
I have 2 questions on the proposed week 1 and week 2 items. The first one says the switch is on to save in renewables. Did you know you can save money off the Eversource? Or you can still save money off your Eversource by switching to 30 to 50%? Because it's kind of misleading the way it's written to suggest that you'll save money by switching to that, as opposed to,
I'd expect nothing less from you.
thank you. You're starting to get to know me.
That's just awesome, and you're
He just
totally right.
volunteered for the committee.
And number 2, per our last meeting, the switch is on to home battery and solar. Durham residents are eligible to save up to 50% off the battery systems through Solarize Seacoast campaign. Read more at information brought to you by Durham Energy Committee. We explicitly last month decided not to endorse their campaign
I was
because it hasn't
pretty
been,
angry
that's
about that
15% off what are usually high, 200% higher than normal price. So I don't think
Might
we
have to
should-
go back to the drawing board for week 2. You're totally correct.
I just,
That
you know,
one,
agree
that one
with
is
that.
a little
It's-
awkward.
I hate to say this, but if you haven't forgotten, credibility is my number 1 objective for me. It's like,
No.
you gotta
And like,
be honest.
when I first read it, I was like, we don't necessarily need to like I just thought it was like, oh yeah, it's educational, but given that other part, yeah, I think we could probably fill that space with something else.
If you pull the EV one up and talk about our chargers.
I was gonna say, like, should we run the survey that week? because there's another EV1 listed, but it doesn't explicitly bring up the survey. So if we run the survey week 2 and the EV resources week 4, I don't think that's too much.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you, Em?
Yeah, so I've gone ahead and added the still save money to the first one, and I can switch out week 2 for a blurb about the EV survey instead. I'd like to, my hope is that this is not another subcommittee, because I think that like we need to just hash it out and finalize it, and then hopefully the next person, they come with their drafts and we just finalize it at the next meeting, and we're not spending too much. I don't think it will be a great use of everyone's time to do any subcommittees.
Well, and I think it's definitely something that should be sent out blind CC'd to everyone, and if anyone has any commentary on any of the coming month's blurbs, to send them back one-on-one to the person who took on the blurbs for that month. And hopefully that coincides with occurring before the next committee meeting, so any issues or conflicting comments from members of the Energy Committee can be discussed specifically then. That way we don't have to all every month go through 4 weeks, wordsmith them all in real time, and take up the committee time for that.
So I'll volunteer for September. And did you have any other things like seasonal? There's still a little bit of air conditioning season left, and air source heat pumps are still, and for September and October, there's like winter and there's weatherization. And, I think as each of us takes on this monthly thing, let's think about where our towns, what bill they're worried about. And what's coming up next. But one more pitch for air source heat pumps. If you needed a sub, is an easy win for these. Cool.
Yep.
And we're going to be pitching the Up Challenge in the September series. We're going to wait 4 weeks. Is that correct? We're not going to try to explain the upgrade your community power thing.
I think so. Steve, that's to you.
I'm sorry, we're not going to try to explain what?
Upgrade.
The opt-up.
Oh, the opt-up.
We're not going to use one of these weeks until September.
Right.
We're going to let this default rate thing play itself out in the pitchfork zone. Great.
Right.
Okay.
So is this the last chance to wordsmith this, or?
No, if you have any comments on the wordsmithing, direct them directly to M.
Alone.
Yeah.
BCC style.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, unless something extremely drastic comes up, I don't.
No, it looks great. Thank you for doing this too. It's a lot of work. It's fantastic. Just a couple of
wordsmithing.
Yeah.
And I think that's great for email. Lastly, if anyone wants to do Energy Committee table for Farm Day on 8/17, I'm not going to be available, but that offer was sent out to me. Durham Day was fun. I have signs. If anyone else is interested in that, shoot me an email.
So is Farm Day a Durham? I'm not aware. What's Farm Day?
Yeah, I believe maybe it's the Durham Lee Madbury, but I thought it was Durham Farm Day.
Is it? I mean, it could be. I just don't know.
Let me check.
Yeah, in past years, Lee and Madbury have also been, or at least Lee has also been involved.
Yeah,
I'll Google it. That's fine. I just didn't know. I'm unaware of the event.
Teresa Walker, chair of Durham Ag Commission, is the one who reached out to me. And it looks to be like yes, it's essentially run by us. I think the other towns join in. It's at La Roche Farm.
Yeah, the dairy farm.
Yeah.
Right.
Michael.
Yeah, a couple of
set up.
Yeah. Some of the participating farms are in Lee, but yeah, I think Durham is the main organizer.
Gotcha. Cool.
So with that, I'm pretty sure we're.
Motion adjourned.
Go ahead. Do your
want
honors.
my check.
No, you're-
I have one question,
Yeah.
and it's a question for Jack.
Uh-oh.
Unless my memory serves me, one of the meetings we had, you were going to make a presentation on the chart that we had done with this work group on the EV ordinance, in terms of what you had figured out, all that whole spreadsheet you did, figuring out what the percentage changes that we wanted to make.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were going to bring that back to this group, explain it, and then if that was okay, then we would embed that into the EV ordinance and then be able to like go from there.
Oh, yeah,
And that
you
was
might
like
have
2
an email
meetings
to
ago,
send
and I think
out,
it's gotten
yeah.
shoved off the
Yeah, I think.
list.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
can we like resurrect that for the next meeting? And
Yeah.
if you're going to be available for that
Right,
meeting?
yeah, that-
Because you had it all done out, so you
I'd
know
be
it
happy
best.
to do that. Would you?
For the record, I don't blame him. He just wrote an EV charger grant.
No, I'm not blaming him. I think we just like dropped it off the
Yeah,
agenda.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I think I lost track of.
So if we can do that,
Fell off the
then we can like
But, yeah.
launch it out to all the town officials that need to review it.
Yeah.
Mike,
I
could you
think that's
just
great.
shoot me an email with what you just said?
Would you remind me to send the email?
I'll try to remind you to remind him.
It's
I
the Excel
won't
sheet.
remember.
Cool picture.
But yeah, all in favor to adjourn.
Wait, sorry. I wanted to make sure that you guys have gotten a chance to make a decision about the workforce housing.
We made that motion.
We did. We made and adopted the motion to support that.
The one you send your email.
Awesome. I just want to make sure we got to that agenda item.
Yeah, no, we got to that after the housing presentation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job. Thank you. Have a great night, Em.
Thanks, everybody.
And I know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matthias. My pleasure.
Yeah, I just.
Getting the hang of it, I guess.
You know, just